If you are unemployed or free to play, HSR 3.4 is going to slaughter you. It's gonna take all your jades. That way he's gonna get his 15th or 16th yuck at this point. So 3.4 is coming soon with 3 limited DPS characters. One is the hyped up Phainon from the story. We got Saber and then a free Archer as the 2 Fate collab units. 4 buffed units coming. It was already confirmed that it is Kafka, Silverwolf, Jingliu, and Blade. And potentially there may be other incoming rerun units. Now, let's be honest, I don't know what your account includes. Do you have a Sunday? Do you have the Hypercarry archetype? Do you have DOT units? I'm not sure, and I don't even know what your ones are. However, this video is all about enlightening you on how to better spend your jades for the incoming 3.4 units and even beyond. Because this video will also tackle on basically predicting or discussing on the supposed leaks, because you already have sort of units kit based on the Protean Hero, Divergent Universe blessings, curios, and even their golden boons. So now you have to consider the future units, as it's already seen in Wuthering Waves and a lot of other, gacha games. There's gonna be a Chachona, Carlotieta, whatever, the elf mommy girl. There's also the Zani and Phoebe situation. Basically, all these gacha games, they're already creating a support, specifically supports a certain archetype or even a character. Before we get into this video, make sure to leave a sub and turn on notification bells to be updated as I am uploading videos every week, HSR and ZZZ content. I appreciate the support. So first off, let's talk about the announced buff characters. We have Blade, Jingliu, Kafka, and Silverwolf. It's already June 13 and we already have the V5 of all the buffs of the new units, basically all the incoming 3.4 units. And let's just say that a lot of these buffs do make a lot of these characters feel like they're within 2.0. This 1.0 characters become 2.0 DPS and supports. Originally, I did plan for this video to become a tier list, but you know what, never mind. I'll just focus specifically on each character. So Blade and Jingliu, I would put them in basically the same package of being HP, DPS. Yes, I've already seen Jingliu. So specifically these two units, they're both HP scaling nowadays. Hey, Penetrate, does that mean that casters will get power creep? No, casters is still the strongest DPS unit. Maybe at least not the strongest. I would say that one of the strongest DPS units of this game. And currently, let's say that you're running the wheelchair meta teams such as Hysilens, Shribby, and maybe other HP scaling supports if there are, RMC, or even Sunday. And then there's one DPS slot. You have to choose between Blade, Jingliu, and Casterus. The answer is pretty obvious. You're gonna choose for Casterus. Because Casterus kind of scales way harder as compared to Blade and Jingliu. And upon checking those leaks, I'm just gonna say that you're gonna need a lot of investments for, let's say, primarily Hyacinth signature Lycon in order for your Blade and your Jingliu to just pop off even harder. That's all I'm saying, right? But even then, I don't think it's gonna compete with a Casterus, because let's be real, they primarily have fulfill the same role and the same teammates. They're the DPS. Casterus just does it better. So that's kind of it. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't pull for them, but personally, I don't pull for rerun units at all. All these 4 characters, I would put them at the bottom unless you really want them or you're there to fulfill a specific archetype. Now let's talk about Kafka and Silverwolf. Now, this is the interesting part, because you could consider pulling for Kafka and Silverwolf if you're interested in basically the Nihility or the DOT archetype. For Silverwolf, she's competing for Acheron main's favorite units, basically for their Acheron on how to get them strong, such as Cypher, Jiaochu, Silverwolf, Pella, and all that other shit. So it finally took Silverwolf 2 years to not be called an side grade of Pella. Now she's the upgrade to Pella, right? There's a lot of changes in her kit. She became more AoE. Really, that's it. And in some instances, 3B cannot compete with a Silverwolf, maybe in like 3 enemy scenario, because Silverwolf already has the AoE team-wide defensive shred, and then she can be, let's just say that her rotations when it comes to her ultimate and energy is practically good. You don't need to skill that often. You can have 1-turn ults practically fix everything about Silverwolf, and you can run her as a sub DPS, so she also has good multipliers for basically damage. Now let's talk about Kafka. It's really hard to talk about Kafka's greatness without considering her future basically best in slot team, because right now I'll just say that Kafka is way better. She feels more like the premier DOT support unit in the sense that she finally gets her role. Most of her damage now aligns with, hey, I'm gonna buff up my entire team's DOT damage. Their DOT I get to trigger more often. Practically good. Now, do I suggest pulling for Kafka? I'll only suggest pulling for her. Okay, wait, it's already 3.4, right? You have to wait for that one specific unit that I really want to detail on before we talk about Kafka. So let's just skip over Kafka. But so far, don't pull for Jingliu and Blade at all, right? And regarding Silverwolf, just pull for, I guess, for your Acheron, especially if you don't want to pull for Jiaochu. I mean, I can't really blame you. Jiaochu looks like an NPC even with the story. I'm sorry, Jiaochu mains, it is what it is. As for Kafka, let's talk about it deeper when we talk about the DOT archetype and the future unit. Now let's talk about Saber and the Orcher. Now let's be honest, they're gonna be crit DPS because they gotta make use of the multipliers. They scale off HP, all I say is they won't, they'll be attack scaling. I'll just remove Orcher first. Orcher is a free unit. You're not gonna be pulling for him. You got him for free. I'll just say that you're gonna need a Sparkle if you wanna make your Orcher pop off. Now let's talk about Saber. So Saber is a wind destruction unit. So we have already seen her animation, which is the Excalibur. 99% sure that that is her ultimate. She is most likely a crit DPS with the emphasis on the ult. I can only assume that she would want Sunday if we also assume that her ult follows a traditional energy system. I've seen the leaks, I have Dream OK, I have not much to discuss about her because I'm not really a hardcore Fate fan. So if you are a hardcore Fate fan, go full for. Me personally, no. We got this version of Saber and I prefer the MILF version, the King Artorial Pendragon one. So for me, her design wise, she is a skip. But overall, if you did pull for her, I'll just tell you that she already also competes with a 3.0 DPS. That's what I'm just saying, okay? Now that the Fate units and the buff units are out of the way, let's talk about Phainon. But before we talk about Phainon, I have a prediction. There will be 3 major archetypes that will be focused on 3.4 and beyond. And one of those archetypes are already here right now in the first place, which is Remembrance units or HP scaling. They kind of go hand to hand with one another nowadays. Of course, there's the example of Aglaia being the Remembrance attack scaling DPS, but I'd rather put her in hyper carry. The second major archetype is going to be hyper carry, and the third major archetype is going to be DOT. Phainon is a physical destruction unit. Now, to get a prediction of his kit, it's fairly simple. You already see it in my screen right now. If not, well, then I'll just edit it in, basing it on the relic set, Wave Strider Captain. This is basically the what I'm assuming is gonna be Phainon's best in slot, which is crit damage increase, so he's a crit scaling DPS. And when the wearer is the target of another ally's target's ability, gain 1 stack of health, stacking at 2 times. And when you're using the ultimate, and if you possess at least 2 stacks, increase the wearer's attack by 48%, lasting for 1 turn. What does this mean? So this already implies that Phainon is an attack scaling crit DPS with an emphasis on his ult, really. And then you can see from here that it lasts for 1 turn, so his ult better be something really big for Phainon to make great use of this relic set. Now to hit harder on the emphasis that Phainon is this, hyper carry unit, let's look at the curios, right? Let's have right here, the Footstep of the Gods. So this a new one. It says here, when one character following the path of destruction or erudition uses their abilities consecutively, their basic attack skill ultimate damage dealt increases by 80%, stacking up to 3 times, and lasts until the end of the next ability used by any other target. This already implies that Phainon, maybe after he enters his ult stage, that basically he's gonna have multiple turns or something, because it stacks up to 3 times, and it will only last until the end of the next ability used by any other target. So this basically suggests that Phainon is gonna have a lot of turns. His other support units probably not gonna be in there. That's kind of it for Footstep of the Gods. Now let's have another one. Another curio that hints at Phainon's kit is this one, Self-Amusement. When a physical character becomes a target of any ally's abilities, obtain 1 stack of Intoxicate, up to 3 stacks. When launching a counter, this instance of counter damage increases by 250% and consumes 1 stack of the buff effect. So this also implies that Phainon is most likely going to have a counter attack in his kit. You can already see here that there's also the effect of obtaining stacks from your support unit's single target abilities. This includes Sunday, this includes Gallagher's healing, and all others. Practically, it's really funny that we have 3 limited destruction units that make use of counters. Now, to hit even harder on Phainon's kit, let's look at his Protean Hero Blessings. So, the Protean Hero Blessings are a great way to look at the unit's kit because they already kind of imply what their kit is gonna revolve around. For Tribi, it's ultimate. For Aglaia, it's the speed and the amount of attacks done. For casters and Medei, it has to do with HP. The only exceptions, I believe, are Anaxa and Cypher. They have something to do with elite enemies and destructible curios, which really has nothing to do with their actual kit. But let's just talk about Phainon's, right? So we can see here that the basic effect of Phainon's Golden Boon is when he enters the day, the first character in the current team receives Dawn for 2 turns. Characters with Dawn increases their final damage dealt by 100%. This just hits hard that Phainon wants to be the only motherfucker that wants to deal the most amount of damage in the team. Basically, he's a selfish hyper carry crit DBS. Another fun thing to add or note is that there's already a previous relic set that also has to do with the first character. I believe it's in the one that's used by supports, the ER rope that was released with Sunday's release. Is the one that has energy regen for the unit and also gives 16 or 48% attack to the first ally, so kind of hits hard that, hey, Phainon's an attack scaling crit DPS. So it's already confirmed that Phainon's archetype is hyper carry. It's been hit hard from all this evidence that we have. If you're considering pulling for him, especially if you are a casual player, I would recommend to pull for him, especially if you don't care about zero cycles and all that other nonsense. Now I'll say something regarding the leaks of Phainon. I've already seen V5. The animation wise, he is great. There are flaws that I'll say, however, that he reminds me of pre-Sunday Jingliu 1 and Firefly. His entire kit, not necessarily his entire kit, but I'll just say that there could be like contradictions. There's some iffy parts of it that makes it very, it feels like they're gonna make a support unit that is meant to fix him. And Phainon's kit basically deserves its own video, which I will make within this week or the following week. Tune in for that one. But overall, if you really love Phainon's design, or you're a husbando main, that kind of stuff, you don't care about the gacha war, you just want to pull for, the new sexy male DPS character, hey, Phainon is great, by the way. Right, he's dealing damage, it is what it is, he's already up there with 3.0 DPS. However, I'm just gonna say it that in terms of MOC, he's up there, but when it comes to pure fiction and apocalyptic shadow, he may not be. And I'll discuss that in the future video. Hey, that's all the 3.4 units, right? Well, there's also rerun units, and most likely they're gonna rerun all the, I guess, harmony units and others that are meant to support the hyper carry archetype. Let's say like for Phainon, well, no shit. He's gonna be run with Sunday and others. There's gonna be HP scaling such as Blade and Jingliu. Then Tribi's most likely gonna be rerun here. It's already her time to... Basically, Hoyoverse is planning to rip off all your money from you. Now that we talk about also the rerun units, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about Hysilens. So Hysilens, we've already seen a bit about her kit from the Golden Boon Blessings. This is Hysilens' Golden Boon. During the day, increase enemy targets' final damage taken by 25% and inflicts enemy targets with Swan Song. At the start of each turn, take physical additional damage equal to 400% base damage. So it's practically confirmed that, hey, Hysilens is the new DOT support unit, or basically the DOT unit. We already got Cypher was meant to be the DOT unit that everybody wants, but turns out, nope, it's not her. She's just another Acheron facial support Nihility unit, but now we finally got it for DOT. An interesting thing to note here from Hysilens is that, as you can see from the effect, that it's taking physical additional damage, so this sort of implies that Hysilens is gonna be a physical dot limited unit. We already have other limited DOT units that basically fit other roles. For Kafka, she's lightning. Black Swan, she's green. Oh wait, no, not green. She's wind. For what's the fire nihility unit? Jiao Chu? Wait, I just realized Jiao Chu is not. I mean, he technically has a dot. Let's just say that Zhao Chu is the fire dot unit, who's also happened to be better for an Acheron support. You know what? It is what it is, right? So the only one left is the physical element. So Hysilens will fit into that. Now, we don't know much about the Hysilens multipliers or the leaks. We just have this to run off to. All I'll just say is that, hey, if you're planning to pull for DOT archetypes, maybe maybe Kafka and Hysilens are the ones that you have to consider pulling for. I think this is more of a hot take that I want to share to you guys, that I want Hysilens to be both a combination of Kafka and Black Swan. I don't really agree with the whole Kafka should be the only support unit that can trigger dots. It sounds very 1.0 coded. Come on now, we got power creep even the dot units. I'm not saying that make Kafka useless, but make Hysilens more fit in line with the 3.0. Come on now, it's already 3.0. The last DOT unit is Zhao Chu, or if you don't want to count in Zhao Chu, then the last DOT unit was Black Swan, and that's like early 2.0, right? This time, I want Hysilens to be the trigger dot unit, so there could be basically, you know, a fun team, right? We could have one healer and then three dot units. If Kafka and Hysilens are there, they can both trigger each other's dots, and they can also have Black Swan, so you can spam dots no matter what, right? It is what it is. So I hope that Hysilens is great. Now let's go talk about Cerydra. Let's look at her Golden Boon Blessing. This is a Night Blessing, Gambit by the Flame. When entering the night, the first character in the current team gains 2 stacks of Conquer. Characters with this buff consumes 1 stack of it at the end of their turn to advance their action by 100% and increase final damage dealt by 10%, lasting until the end of their next turn. This basically just confirms that Cerydra is most likely going to be the premier hyper carry support unit for Phainon, because look at this, it's advancing action forward for only 1 unit instead of all. So if you're planning to pull for Phainon, you gotta pull for Cerydra. Now I know that kind of sounds as like, oh my god, I have to pull for another unit in order to glaze my other unit. Let's just hope that maybe Cerydra is a generalist support, but of course there's gonna be obvious glazing wherein Cerydra's kit is far more tuned for characters like Phainon, who probably has something in their kit that really wants something from Cerydra, right? So that's it. Now that we've done the hyper carry and the dot archetypes, what's left are basically the boon blessing that has no name, and then also the boon blessing that has to do with what is this, Terravox. So Terravox, I won't really discuss about Terravox, to be honest, because looking at it, it's more of a shielder. So maybe in the future we're gonna have a shielder unit. If you haven't pulled for an aventurine, or you don't have a limited shielder unit, you could consider saving up for this future one. Or maybe you want to upgrade your Japor, then maybe don't pull for aventurine, save your stellar jades for Terravox or whatever this guy is, right? Let's talk about the one with no name boon blessing. If you can see from here, for every allied target on the field during the night, final damage dealt increased by 5% up to a maximum of 40%. And last thing I know, up to a maximum of 40%, you divide it by 8. It's pretty clear that there's gonna be 8 allies, so this must be the Emanator of Remembrance coming soon. Because just like how Acheron wants Nihility units and Herta wants Erudition units, I'm pretty confident that this no-named unit, no-named Boon Blessing unit will want basically every Remembrance unit. Now we're not sure if she would be HP scaling or attack scaling, because so far looking at all the buff blessings, it all has to do with damage percentage and final damage dealt. So far looking at the previous Remembrance units, such as Hyacinth and Castoris, they kind of want HP, so maybe it's safer to assume that this unit will be an HP scaling unit. I should practically make a fucking tier list at this point. Hold on. So basically here is the tier list for the new 3.4 units. I didn't even bother include the future units evolve, such as Hysilens, Cerydra, and all those other units that are basically hinted from the golden boons or the basically simulated universe shit. So if you're planning to pull for hyper carry, just be noted that we're gonna get a free archer, by the way. Now, of course, he has a hunt unit, so they know for a fact that if they release a hunt unit for the casual players, they're gonna have a harder time using a hunt unit as compared to, let's say, a destruction and erudition, because you have to choose your targets, right? And you know, if you don't want to use your brain, then you have to pull either for Phainon or basically pull for the destruction units such as Phainon and Saber. For DOT, if you're planning to pull for Hysilens, you should consider pulling for Kafka. And now we got Akron Slave or New Tribi here. If you plan to basically glaze your Akron and you don't want Jiaochu, go pull for Silverwolf. However, all these 4 units, I wouldn't really consider for re-rolling them, to be honest. Especially this 2, because the moment you have casters, these 2 are not, they shouldn't be counted. Of course, they are the current buffs given to them. They can compete with like 2.0 DPS, I believe, especially you have the wheelchair remembrance meta like Hyacinth signature, and also Tribi. But you know, that shit could also be given to midday and casters, right? Maybe the 2 buffed units that I would consider pulling for if I still don't have them would be Kafka and Silverwolf. So this is basically the tier list, so consider what you will. I'm basing it only on archetype because I don't know what your account is, right? It's up to you to decide your pulls. All I'm just gonna say is that, hey, if you pull for a certain archetype, make sure to pull for the supposed next unit that will basically glaze that unit. Let's say if you're gonna pull for Kafka, you gotta pull for Hysilens, baby. If you're gonna pull for Phainon or these 2 other units, I would consider pulling for their best in slot hypercarry support unit, maybe Sunday, Cerydra, and others. And you have the HP scaling DPS units. Pull for Tribi, pull for Hyacinth. I mean, you can't pull for Hyacinth anymore. It's too late, by the way. So that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. I discussed all the other units. Hopefully you can save up enough Stellar Jades to pull for your favorite units. I just want to remind you guys again that don't take this video personally. Just make sure to pull for the units that you want. I'm just saying that if you pull for the units that you want, well, I'm also saying that you should also consider pulling for their best in slot support units just to glaze them even further. With that out of the way, I'll make sure to see you guys in the next video. Make sure to leave a sub, like, comment, share, and others. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.